The Atlantic premiers had a virtual catch-up with the Prime Minister today, just 1 week after the nation's premiers gathered in person here in Ottawa. This comes on the heels of a new agreement signed by Nova Scotia and Massachusetts on offshore wind power production.
This memorandum of understanding today that Massachusetts signs with Nova Scotia is going to advance and strengthen offshore wind power in the Atlantic. It will benefit Nova Scotians, it will benefit people in Massachusetts and this region.
The Wind West project could produce up to 1/4 of Canada's total energy capacity and give Nova Scotia $100 million in annual revenue. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston joins me now. Premier Houston, good to see you again. Thanks for giving us some of your time today.
Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
So you and your Atlantic counterparts, you had a meeting with the Prime Minister today. Is this building on something from the First Minister's meeting, or was this focused specifically on regional issues? What's at play here?
It's a little bit of both, actually. I think it was a request that went out. The Council of the Atlantic Premiers, we meet regularly, and this was a request that we'd put out a little while ago. And today was the day. So, but it worked out well with the meetings last week and just kind of building on discussions about defense spending, discussions about internal trade, all the major projects, all the major things that are on the minds of so many people, many Canadians, and certainly ours. So it was a good follow up, and I do feel momentum on all those files. So it's good to keep pushing as well on it, and that's what was happening today.
When do we see the big public momentum on some of those files, though, Premier? I'm not trying to be dismissive or cynical on this, but talking about defense spending, talking about internal trade barriers, there's been some movement on all of these things, but sort of the big push to sort of match the ambition, it's not acutely visible just yet.
Yeah, I think to me it is. I mean, on defense, it certainly is. I mean, certainly we're here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, the defense capital of Canada, we call it here. There's so much infrastructure here and so many opportunities here. So we can actually feel that. There's a lot of enlisted personnel based here. We talk to them, we feel it. So we kind of see that happening. For us, major projects, of course, we've got a few in the hopper, as everyone does, but our Wind West project, I know that's one that the federal government is really keen on. So I can feel that momentum. There's a couple, obvious next steps that I think that would help, certainly around a feasibility study for where does the transmission line go. I think that's a fair thing. When's that coming would be a fair question, and I do feel something like that is imminent. So I'm actually feeling momentum, of the things that worry me in my daily life as a premier, and they are numerous. I'm actually optimistic on the pace of things that are happening on important files. It's still government. It's still the pace of government in many ways, but that pace is certainly faster than it has been in the past.
No, that is a good point. It is still government. But look, you mentioned defense spending, and I know there is a defense industrial policy coming. We're not entirely sure when, but the Munich Security Conference is in about 2 weeks or a week and a half. It feels like the sort of thing you might want to have on the table before that. I mean, do you get a sense we're going to get a public reveal on that in the immediate near future, or do you think this is still weeks, if not months away?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of urgency, I would say, on a couple of things: electricity, strategy, defense strategy. So I do feel certainly the Prime Minister and the closest to him feel that urgency, and I think that's filtering down through the system. So as I say, I'm optimistic that we're getting some movement. I'm excited about the projects, the potential, the investments. All these things are really important because we need that economic activity. Of course, in Nova Scotia, we're going to be back in the legislature, I guess, in 2 weeks. We'll table our budget, around that time, and it's a tough time. I mean, we have a big deficit this year. We'll table another deficit. It's going to be big, and some lean times on that front. So we know we have to grow the economy, generate this economic activity and the jobs, and we can do it. But we've always needed a partner in the federal government, and right now more than ever, I'm totally undeterred. I feel we have that partner right now.
Just one more bit on defense, and then I do want to switch to the energy project, because you are also the Minister of Energy, in addition to being the Premier. You signed a deal with Massachusetts. But I know there's a lot of, there is going to be a significant ramp up in defense spending, as part of a sort of an economic growth policy, but also just a sovereignty and national defense plan. Each Premier, each province is asking for a piece of that. So how does that get carved up? Because it can't just become like a regional economic development program, right? It needs to be a serious defense plan. So how do you see this playing out once the spending really gets to a critical point?
It's a big country. It's a diverse country. There, everyone contributes something to it. But for us, of course, we're the home of Atlantic Navy, and so many, the Air Force that we have in Greenland. So much, and for for generations, Nova Scotia has stood as Canada's first defense from that direction. So we're really excited about the possibilities just in investments in infrastructure, investments and things like submarines, ships, all these types of things are but there's room for it to be dispersed across the country too. Like this is not it's a big country and the defense goes across the whole nation. So, but in Atlantic Canada and certainly in Nova Scotia, and I grew up in a military family, so I have a little bit of a bias towards those who serve in that capacity. And I can tell you just from being around Nova Scotia, certainly being in Halifax, talking to enlisted personnel, talking to those that are in active duty, they are optimistic. They can kind of feel the momentum too. So you're right. I mean, the rubber's got to hit the road, but I see no reason to believe that it's not going to.
Okay, on the agreement you've reached with Massachusetts, on the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, the Wind West project that you have is still in the concept phases. I know you've put out a call for proponents and interests earlier, last year, I guess, at this point now. This MOU with Massachusetts to work together on procurement, to building out transmission lines, purchasing agreements, two-way power transfers. Where does this bring you in terms of getting to that next stage with this particular project that you've been championing?
I think it's a really big moment actually, and Massachusetts have wind resources too. They have some expertise, they have some experience there. So to share on this is kind of the offshore wind is new to us. They have a project that actually is live right now. So they have some experience there. So share that knowledge. But really, why this is so significant is as we try to attract interest, billions of dollars to people to build generation in the offshore of Nova Scotia. They're kind of wanting to see, like, where's the demand going to be? How are we going to get it to customers? So we have some work to do on the transmission. But I've heard from a number of interested parties and companies over the last couple of days is how great it is to see a region, the Northeast region, working together and acknowledging that we can help each other and we can sell to each other, we can learn from each other. So I think it's just an important step. And for us with Massachusetts, I mean, this is in New England and Atlantic Canada, these are long-standing friendships and relationships, commercial relationships, family relationships. Of course, we have the Halifax explosion, Boston tree relationship. So these are long-standing things, and just to take the next step, looking to the future, to support each other on energy security, to support each other on affordable energy, so it's a really important step to the market, but a really important step for us too.
Right. Well, I mean, look, you obviously need a market, you need transmission if you're going to do any kind of electricity generation project, because as big as this could be, it's more than Nova Scotia needs. And finally, the international market helps open up some capital. But so what does this do in terms of accelerating your timeline on this, like in terms of tangibly moving this to the point where you're ready to say, okay, this is going to be a go. We got a proponent, we got a market. Let's start moving.
Yeah, so the regulator did the first step, which was the qualified bids, expressions of interest, if you will. The response to that was through the roof. Like, it was really remarkable. The companies from all over the world, big companies, reputable companies, who said they're really interested in this, want to be part of this. Now, the next step would be the actual bidding process. So, I would see that opening in the next couple months for sure, over the summer. So maybe towards the end of summer, fall, I'd be hoping that we'd have those proponents on building the generation. We still need the proponents on building the cables that move move it to transmission lines. So, but it's all working in tandem. So, look, it's a big project. It's part of Nova Scotia's future. It's part of Canada's energy future, and I know we'll get there. Not fast enough for my liking, maybe not fast enough for others either, but it's all progress and it's moving the right direction. So that's a good thing. Well,
and just as a final point, I mean, memorandums of understanding are just that. They're memoranda of understanding. They're not a finalized contract. They're not a commercial term sheet. They're not at that level of solidity. So what's the timeline then on moving ahead with Massachusetts as something that will be formal and final? Do you need the proponent and all of, I guess you need all of that done first, right?
Yeah, it's all part of it. But look, the working relationship, certainly at our teams, is really tight. In fact, when I was down in Boston in December for the Christmas tree event, the recognition of the Halifax explosion, we had our teams together, and I said, wouldn't it be good if we could get an MOU signed by the end of January, which seemed incredibly optimistic. There's a lot of moving parts in both of those bureaucracies, but they mentioned to me yesterday when they were down there, they said, well, Premier, we accepted your challenge. We didn't quite get there. It's February 5th, but we almost got there. So I only share that to say there's an urgency. Everybody feels the urgency. Like, we just had, potential rolling brownouts over the last couple of weeks with the weather we've had. Rolling brownouts in Canada in 2026. I mean, it's a pretty scary concept. So energy security, affordability of energy, these are all things that are on the mind of every citizen, but certainly every elected leader. So there's an urgency to work together, and I feel that, and I welcome that, and I'm looking forward to it.
Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia, always good to speak with you, sir. Thank you for some time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.